views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting groups. If you'd like to produce a show, call us at 260-421-1250.
Let me be your lighthouse so I can show you the way. Let me be your shining light, I'll keep you from drifting away. I'm the one that makes you try when...
Hello, my name is Patty Hunter of Patty's Page. Welcome to my TV show. Today's special, beside me to my right, is Priscilla Baughman. That's a long name, kiddo. And she's the El Presidente for Restored Purpose. Also a speaker for post-abortive women.
Yes.
That's good. We have questions for you, dear, today. So, Priscilla, what happened in your life earlier to change for you forever?
What changed me forever? What happened in my life was that I was separated from my ex-husband at the time and found out I was pregnant. And I found myself in a crisis pregnancy. And I was brought up in a very dysfunctional home. So I couldn't go to my family. And so a friend of mine had told me about an abortion. And so what changed my life was when I made that decision to go down to Webster Street in Fort Wayne, Indiana, at the Women's Health Organization and had an abortion done. That totally changed my life completely.
When you had the abortion, what happened to you and how did you react?
What happened to me was, I remember clearly that I went the day before Thanksgiving, and I remember walking into the clinic and feeling that I had just walked into a funeral home. Because when I was brought up, our funeral homes were very dark and sad and full of grief. And that's the feeling I got when I walked up the stairs to go to the clinic. And the things that happened from that transferred there, women need to know that every woman that walks in an abortion clinic through those doors will be lied to. And so I had bought the lie that it was just a clump of cells and it would be an easier procedure and I would be able to go on to my life like nothing ever happened. And unfortunately, even shortly after the abortion took place and I walked out of the door to go home, things changed completely.
About yourself?
I had my friend that had talked to me about getting an abortion dropped me off, and didn't even stay with me through the whole thing, so I was alone, basically. And then after she came and picked me up, she took me home and dropped me off, and I was left alone. And at that point, I was hemorrhaging, and had called the abortion clinic to get help, and they told me that I couldn't come back to the clinic, that I had to call my family doctor, which was the day before Thanksgiving, and that they couldn't help me. At that point, I knew that I became angry and disappointed and knew that all they wanted out of me was my money and get me out the door.
So what feelings did you have towards Planned Parenthood and the abortion, that person himself?
Well, at that point, I just became angry, and I had to deal with all the physical issues from that. But once I gave my life to Christ, I just vowed that I would expose abortion for what it is.
I've known people who had abortions. It's tough to get through to them, especially when you know them personally.
Yes.
So, what happened to your body afterwards, throughout the years after this abortion?
Well, what happened to my body was after that, after the bleeding eventually stopped, but after that, for months after that, every menstrual cycle, I was in excruciating pain. I would pass humongous size of blood clots, and it was like in 80. Well, my abortion was in 81, so in 83, I was in Florida visiting friends, and woke up in excruciating. Went to the bathroom, and my stomach blew up like a balloon. And I ended up in an emergency room for 12 hours because they were trying to find out what was wrong with me. And long story short, they found, after I got into surgery, they found out that I had to have a pint and a half of blood pumped out of me. And what it was result of that was I had an ovarian cyst that had bursted, and I was bleeding internally. And I had a second ovarian cyst that was the size of a grapefruit. So it took a lot of surgery to get that taken care of.
Well, you know, it's kind of hard to take. After this happened, when you started to help post-abortive women, who have you worked with since this abortion? Who have you worked with?
So I worked with, well, once after the surgery was done, and I had seen on TV, and this was totally a God thing, on public TV, there was a film called Silent Scream by Dr. Nathan Danielson's, and there I saw exactly, he went through and explained what every instrument was, what it did, and at that point the Lord had just revealed to me that I had murdered my own child. And at that point I asked for forgiveness, but I was still going through the guilt and the shame of having an abortion, that I was probably going to hell because of what I've done, even though I kept asking for forgiveness.
Yes.
I was relying on my feelings, my emotions, to make me feel like I was forgiven. But that's not what forgiveness is. It's not an emotional thing. It's that God's love just comes over and forgives us because we have repented for what we've done. And about a year later, I was still going through issues. I started drinking. I started becoming a workaholic and just filling the void that only God could fill, but I was trying to fill it with earthly things instead of godly things. And I had my pastor that I was going to had knocked at my door one evening and said that he had had 2 angels appear to him at his foot of his bed 2 nights in a row, that I was in grave danger. And at that point, I broke down and cried, and I confessed what I had done, that I had had an abortion. And he just said that, he would just so lovingly said that there's nothing that you could ever do in your life that God would never forgive if you come with a repentant heart.
Right.
So at that point, that's when my healing started. And then I had asked the Lord, I made a vow to the Lord that if He healed me from my abortion, that I would expose abortion for what it was, and I would go anywhere that He would send me to expose it and do what He wanted me to do.
So, did you work with Deeper Still, with Lisa Davis as well?
Yes, I started with Deeper Still. I got involved with a lady that I knew. Well, I got involved with a pregnancy center in Auburn, Indiana. And the director there had, of course, one of the questions when they ask you, if you've had an abortion, that's on one of the intake papers to be a volunteer, and I told her yes. And so she connected me with a lady that lived in Columbia City that was doing a Bible study. And so I started out, that was my first post-abortion Bible study to start getting healing.
So you're on a board nowadays?
Okay, now so from there I got involved with Operation Rescue and would sit in front of abortion clinics and block the clinic doors to keep women from going in and having abortions and killing their unborn baby. And then then I was, for a short term, I was president for Allen County Right to Life. And I've been with volunteered at the Hope Center for several years, and still kept in contact with Lisa Davis, who is now the director of Deeper Still, and that is a weekend retreat for post-abortive men and women to come at no cost and to get forgiveness and healing and deliverance from having their abortions. And then from that, over the years, Lisa Davis and I have talked about over the years about women who've gotten healing but haven't moved any further than that. Because, you know, once God delivers you from something, He has more for you.
Yeah.
And so we kept talking about it and wondering how we could outreach women to go, not just to get healing, but to go into what God has for them.
Yeah.
Because God, just like the Apostle Paul, God took all his qualities when he went through his experience of getting saved. God took all those qualities and put them into his ministry to further the kingdom. So when I lost my job in 2020 from the pandemic, that was God's open door, and God had me start Restored Purpose.
What's that?
And what we do is we educate women, mentor them, and we train them to step out and be who God created them in a restored purpose.
So, you're the president.
Yes. I am.
And your role with this organization, how many people are working for Restored Purpose?
Well, right now I have, there is me and 6 other women who are on the board. And every one of those women are involved in a different ministry.
That's good.
So that's who's on our board. And then right now I am doing three Restored Purposes in my home. And the 4th one is being done, was being done in Lisa Davis's home. And we've got 3 women in that. So I have, right now there's been a total of 12 women who are going through that Restored Purpose.
Thank the Lord. 12 women who are being healed. What with their family, siblings, grandmother?
Yes. Yes.
How do you approach them to heal them?
Yes.
After they found out that their sister or daughter had an abortion.
Yes. Yes. So yes. And in fact, I just recently I met a lady through Aglow, Women's Aglow.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking, and it just so happened she wanted to know, what I was doing, and I told her about Restored Purpose. And her daughter has had an abortion, and so now this lady wants to get with me and talk to me about my abortion experience, so that when her daughter comes to her to tell her about the abortion, she knows how to minister to her own daughter. So the Lord is just opening up doors, not just for the men and women who've been affected by abortion, but the Lord is opening up doors for family members who have been robbed of having a grandchild
Or a niece
or siblings.
Yeah. Did you name your child? Give
Yes.
a name.
Pardon me?
Did you give a name to your aborted child?
Yes, I did. My son's name, I knew it was a son. And a lot of people ask me how I knew that. But before my abortion, well, I had 2 children, and then I had gotten the abortion. But when I was expecting for both my children, I knew exactly what I was going to have without ultrasound. So I knew that the child that I aborted was a boy, and I named him David Michael.
That's a good name.
David Michael, and I've written, wrote him a letter, and I've gone out to the Catholic cemetery where we have this gravesite at for the aborted babies.
Memorial.
And I've stood and read a letter to my aborted son.
I saw that. It's
Yes.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And people, she's here to help you girls and the families. What is your website?
Right now, just because it's just a newly organization, I don't have a website. People can contact me through my email address or my phone number.
So we'll put that up. Women who are not religious, how do you approach them to help them, especially when they're post-abortive and their families?
How do I help them? The Restored Purpose program, we go through 3 studies. And the first study we go through is called Unraveled Roots. And, you know, the Lord showed me that as the story in the fig tree, when Jesus cursed the fig tree,
yeah.
the fig tree was not just cursed but the leaves, but it was cursed at the root. Because when they came back to that fig tree the following spring,
Never
the
grew.
tree was still not producing fruit. So we do a study called Unraveled Roots, and it goes through each step that the cause of deciding to have an abortion just doesn't happen. It is an accumulation of things from your past that accumulate to bring you to that point of a crisis pregnancy and to decide to get an abortion. So we do that. That's a 5-week study. Then the next study we go through is called Dress to Kill, and I know that sounds
A
odd,
little hard.
but that is about the armor.
Oh,
And as in Ephesians 6, when Paul talks about putting on the armor,
oh God.
that when we go into battle, when we do spiritual warfare, we have to be clothed with that armor. And when you do post-abortive ministry, you are in the enemy's camp.
Satan is the one that's doing all
Yes.
this, the lies and everything.
Yes, Satan
Cover.
is the enemy.
It's like a veil over our eyes.
Yes.
Satan is.
Yes. So as we minister to other post-abortive women, we have to be clothed in that armor.
Strong.
So we go through that study, and then the next study that we do is called Launching Out into New Territory. And it's a study on the Apostle Paul and how God, the Lord, took Apostle Paul step by step. And he moved him not out of bounds, but moved him according to how God stepped him. And God would take him away from places, and he'd be ministered to, and he'd be taught. So that's how we're teaching that. When you go into a ministry, you just don't jump into it unknowingly. You just go step by step according to the Lord's leading.
Being educated.
Being educated, being mentored,
Right.
and being trained.
And being loved.
Yes, and the Lord has has been showing me that the disciples spent 3 years with Jesus, 24/7.
Wow.
They were learning, they were being mentored, and they were being trained to go out and take the word to the world.
It's a long time.
Yes, yes,
But they were thorough.
yes.
They knew what they were doing.
Yes, so restored purpose is not just go and get healed, but to become who God created you to be. And he takes all those pieces and he puts them in you for his kingdom.
You know, it's like, I said this before in another show, it is like the weaver.
Yes,
Ever heard of that poem?
yes,
When they see a beautiful piece of art, a carpet or whatever, tapestry, on the top is beautiful, gold, silver. Underneath it's all ragged and the threads coming down and wool and whatever. That's what the humans see
Yes.
looking up. But what God sees looking down is a beautiful tapestry of gold and silver and all beautiful colors like gems. That's the way he sees us when we are loving our Lord himself and asking for to be forgiven from what we had done. And he loves us and he would not walk away from us.
yes.
Do you have books or DVDs to help recommend for the mothers and families?
Yes, I recommend Unplanned Book is a great book to read
By Abby Johnson?
by Abby Johnson.
Yes, I have that here.
Anything by Lila Rose is a good thing. Anything by anything to do with there's a book called Healing for the Wounded Heart
Yeah.
by Karen Ellison.
Huh.
It's called, and Karen Ellison is the one who started Deeper Still.
I have to get that book. What about people who, even though they need to be go through courses or whatever you call it, what is it, being taught for weeks, how do you approach them to help them heal in the first place from the abortion?
From
that
their
they had
abortion?
50 or 60 years ago, or maybe a month ago? How do you approach them to open up to them so they can open up to you?
Mostly I have had people come as I give some of my testimony, a part of my testimony. I have had women come up to me and tell me that they've had abortions. So the Lord is the one that opens the doors, that and I am not silent. I've got a voice. I have spoke just this past July. I spoke down in Indianapolis at the special hearing they had for the abortion law.
Oh,
And was able to give my testimony.
SB.
So that's how people usually hear
about what you...
about what I do and about my abortion experience.
What do you, how do people approach you? They phone you or email you, or how?
Most of the time I have people one-on-one. Like I've been out in the public and have given my testimony or something, and afterwards somebody will come up and say, they will have tears in their eyes and they'll say, I've had an abortion. And so then that opens the door for me to talk to them a little bit and to encourage them to get healing.
Help. Yeah.
Yes.
And especially for the families too. They lost a beautiful baby boy or girl in their family. So how do you gently approach them, especially when they're wounded, because they think that's what their sister or daughter did, and how do they heal along with the mother?
We've had a good example of that. We had at one of the Deeper Still retreats, we had a lady that had come in for the retreat and had an abortion, but the man that she was married to was not the father of the aborted baby. Mm-hmm. But he wanted to come to the retreat so he could learn and know what she had gone through in order for him for their marriage to be better.
More better?
Yes.
That sounds like
yes.
A lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
He wanted to be able to relate to what she went through and the healings.
Yes. And if you can't go to retreat, what else can you do? I mean, books or DVDs, or to help heal women and their families? How do you approach them mano a mano to open up? To open up the subject?
Well, right now through my church, I belong to a ministry called Cleansing Stream,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a 10-week study on. It's called Knowing God, Speaking Truth, Words of Life, and it leads up to a retreat that we go through. It's the deliverance from strongholds and unhealthy soul ties, and helps people that are having emotional issues in life. And so I'm on the ministry team for that, and that's how people. I'm allowed to give a little bit of my abortion testimony at those retreats.
So you tour.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You're a very good speaker.
Thank you.
Finally, what would you like to share with my audience to encourage the families, especially the moms?
What I would like to share, such a burden for women who have gone through abortion and are living in shame and guilt, and just to reach out to somebody that you have heard that's gotten healed from their abortion, and just take that. If you just take that first step, God will take care of the rest of it. And to know that you are not the only person that is going through the emotional issues. Every woman that has had an abortion does have guilt and has shame. And that guilt and shame imprisons you and cuts you. You put a wall up because you didn't trust the medical field at the abortion clinic. So now you don't trust anybody, number one. And number two, even though society tells us that abortion is like no big deal, and you have one, you find out personally it is a big deal, and it does change your life. Every experience, every decision we make changes our lives in one way or another. It'll either change it for the better or it'll change it for the worse. And when you have an abortion, you go downhill, you don't go uphill.
Some people like an oyster with a pearl, a little damaged part gets surrounded by pearl residue or whatever to make it one beautiful pearl, but that big, whatever. It's raveled up like that, like peeling an onion.
Yes.
When you get to the root of it,
Yes.
it's God that forgives and loves you.
Yes.
You're not alone. And
Yes.
I appreciate you being on my show.
Yes. And what you said about being peeling, and God does not put you through something that you're not ready for.
Right, you're not
Every
alone.
step, it's one step, and it's like, that's what he did with me. He did not only heal me from my abortion, but he healed me from the womb up, because my mother never wanted me. And I was brought up with low self-esteem and emotional issues, physical abuse, emotional abuse from my mother. And the Lord told me that he would heal me from the womb up. And that's what it takes. It takes getting healed from the root. And God does that. And if you're willing to take that first step, there is endless things that God can do in your life.
God is our Father.
Yes.
Don't be afraid to approach him to get help
Yes.
and love and
Yes.
be forgiven.
Yes.
This is Patty Hunter of Patty's Page, speaking with Priscilla Baughman, and we love her.
Yeah, thank you. Love you.
And we would also like to have you back on my show again.
Yes.
We'll see you next week. Thank you and God bless.
Godspeed, my love, until we meet again. You're always in my heart and every dream. Don't let this time apart give in to all our fears. God will keep us close from up above. So until we meet again, Godspeed, my love. God is with us always, and for the rest of our lives.